know that the world is different, and one of the major differences is globalization. And what does that mean? We've gone from talking about international companies to multinationals, and now to truly operating as global entities. Interesting fact is that only 21% of our HR directors globally have confirmed that they actually know how to manage cross-functional teams. And if we talk about moving global, it's no longer only cross-functional, but also cross-cultural teams. Interesting as well is that only 12% of HR professionals even understand how teams are currently interacting in the world of work today. So interesting stats, particularly coming from a global organization and seeing the change that is happening and how we are continually looking at our operating model, redesigning not only for efficiency and cost saving, but also at the same time and in parallel for growth and agility. Demographic shifts have changed our landscape, and I'm very privileged to have worked with organizations across the world. And I remember yesterday I was telling a story that in my career, I was always used to being the only female traveling with a leadership team of 50+ gentlemen in manufacturing. And here I am looking, heading HR in Eastern Europe, and very privileged to be working with many up-and-coming female leaders. So never before have we had 3, even 4 generations working together in organizations globally today. There's more gender diversity, more working moms and dads, and very importantly, more international workforce. Employment has now set new expectations. Interesting is that there are a number of myths, which people like to call facts, about millennials. And it seems that one of the myths or facts is that they are job hoppers. But a recent survey says that almost 70% of millennials actually want to stay with organizations for more than 3 years. They also say that they're willing to work hard. Over 50% are willing to have business calls in the evening. They're willing to travel where they need to travel. In fact, 74% are willing to move from the city in which they live and even the country in which they live to gain that exposure and career experience. So our talent pool is shrinking and growing at the same time. 74% though, this is a big interesting fact about the world of work, actually want to work in an environment that they feel is engaging and positive. So it's really important that if you want to attract talent and you want to retain them and make sure that they're actually driving and delivering what we believe are results for our organization, they want to work among colleagues that they have the same values. They want to work among colleagues that are engaged, that are passionate about the work they're doing. And this, for us, is a real challenge. Also, very importantly, 92% of graduates say that they want to work for organizations that show some form of social responsibility. So no longer can we separate the conversation around what is happening in our social environment from what is happening in our work environment. It is merging at quite a rate. This clearly means that we have a very different landscape as HR and even as communicators in our organization. How are we mapping talent strategies to keep baby boomers, millennials, our generation X and Y engaged and working collaboratively together? There was a book published a couple of years ago called Workforce of One. And it was very interesting because it brought the concept of marketing into HR. So how do we segment our workforce? How do we customize the offerings that we bring in terms of learning, development, retention, flexibility for employees in terms of even compensation packages? How do we look at that by a workforce of one lens? So the concept of marketing in HR. How many of you have a smartphone? That's very few. All of you. How many of you use at least 2 to 3 apps on your smartphone? Right. 82% of businesses will be digital in the next 3 years. 82%. That's pretty significant. The reason that that's going to happen is because digital brings result. 83% increase in productivity if we're digital. 82% in cost efficiencies. 80% in quality of work. And a 74% increase in employee engagement when organizations shift to digital. That's a big number, but what does it mean for our workforce? It means organizations now require 24-hour workforces. Employees can be based anywhere in the world. They can work at a time convenient for them, and they can work from anywhere. They don't need to be in an office. They can be in a cabin in the woods, as long as there's Wi-Fi, of course. And they're connected. So how do we start creating a workforce that we can engage with anywhere? Another interesting stat I actually read this morning, by 2017, which is a couple of months away, 41% of our workforces will actually be contract or temporary labor. So our landscape is changing. Interestingly, how ready are we for this digital world that is a couple of months away? 43% of business leaders, which for me seems pretty low, say that the lack of capabilities and skills in digital is a key barrier to them really being ready for the digital era. 43%, that's almost half of organizations. So as HR, we should be redesigning a lot of what we're doing. How do we make sure that our employees who are now virtual and remote can get the learning that they need to get on time? How are we factoring this just-in-time learning in? And how are we creating this mobile learning technology that's necessary? In addition, we still have to manage our organization as HR. And so 60% of organizations are already shifting a lot of what is back office to mobile, to digital, so that our employees can still receive the traditional HR services and be engaged and part of our organization as we proceed. So the landscape is changing for business, the landscape is changing for how we connect with our employees, and also how we equip and enable them to feel engaged with an organization. The rate of change is less predictable. I think that's no surprise for anyone, and change has accelerated this last year around 50 years. What's interesting about change is that it's a bit like that Black Swan, for those of you who have read the book, a bit like the Enron saga. It is not predictable. Change that we never expected is happening. So I heard the earlier panel discussion, and who would have bet that America would have had the president that they have now? So I know, as they said, the conversation is changing. So change is happening, and I think this has been a year of significant resets globally in our world. So 96% of senior executives say they're in some form of transformation. I was surprised that that was only 96%. 47% of senior executives believe that what they're doing is actually going to have lasting value, because the rate of change is so fast that just after you've finished implementing something, there is something new. And yesterday, I had a discussion with our team here in Ukraine, and one of the questions they asked me was, we see that the transformation agenda for 2017 is still a big one. You know, when is it going to come to an end? And so the response was, never. If it comes to an end, we're not going to survive as an organization. So transformation needs to be part of our DNA, and that means agility in our leaders, in our people, in our HR is going to be critical for us to succeed. And this is an important quote that I just like to use. Change does not cause dysfunction. Change surfaces it. So if we are not ready, if we are not becoming more predictable, staying at the forefront of our game, our weaknesses are going to be exposed. And so it's really important for us to become more proactive in how we engage with the future of the world of work. So as I mentioned earlier, our employees are now a bit like our customers. They have choice. They have options. They have information we may not want them to have. I bet that all of our employees' LinkedIn profiles or access to glass ceiling is far more updated than their profiles in our office. And so they're aware of what's happening in the market. Millennials are not afraid to share the real truth. This is what I own. This is how practices happen in my organization. And if they're not happy, they're not afraid and they're not shy to say so. So it's really important for us to become aware that we need to have channels for employees to feedback to our organization. We need to have channels for us to communicate in a way that helps people understand some of the changes. Very important. People want to know why. We're very good at saying, this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it. But we forget to give people that meaning and purpose that they're looking for. So really important when we talk about digital, when we talk about communication, our challenge ahead is huge. We're connecting virtual workforces that may never see each other face to face. We need to connect with them at speed, and we need to connect with them in a way that is meaningful. So HR and communication, I think our journey is only just beginning. So what does this mean for human capital priorities? And very importantly here, I'll show you a slide in a bit. Human capital is not the responsibility of HR alone. Human capital is the responsibility of leadership. Human capital, as per the discussion today, is the responsibility of leaders in our countries and global leaders as well. Going forward, the cost of attracting the right talent is going to increase. And this is how we need to get smarter around sourcing and pooling talent globally and internationally. So where are the hubs of capability and how do we best leverage that? The right allocation of skills and the right development of resources. We need to be choiceful. We don't have time to take everyone on the same journey. We need to be choiceful around where we make investment, and we need to be choiceful about what are the skills we need for tomorrow, not only for today. We also need to improve how we engage people. And we cannot tell people how we will engage them. We should be asking people how they best need to be engaged. We need to focus on retaining our top performers. But in general, actually, we need to focus on retention. How do we keep and connect the changing workforce? We need to set up for a sustainable future. And again, this rests with leaders. It's very interesting for me, and I've done a lot of work in leadership development. And it's very interesting when you sit with leaders and you say, so tell me, what is for you your biggest development area for the next 1 year? Not even asking for a long-term focus. And they really have to think hard about that because they believe they don't really have a development area. So that's frightening for me because it indicates that our leaders, many of our leaders in corporate organizations are not aware of how the world of work is changing and that they still have a very narrow view around how the world of work is working and how they will continue to grow and perform as leaders. So our responsibility to create the awareness as HR practitioners is not easy because it takes courage. It takes the ability to coach our leaders to think differently, so it's a mindset shift. And as communicators, really importantly, how do we enable our leaders to be the voice of the right message, but not just speak it, understand it, and believe it as well. People see through people. I think that our behavioral economics, and Daniel Pink has written a lot about that. I think behavioral economics should be on every leader's list of reading to really start understanding that they have a responsibility around that. And then leveraging the right HR capability. So while HR is not responsible for human capital on their own, HR is a very important enabler in driving this in the business. So I think I've told you that. This is a really interesting picture that I wanted to share with you around how do we create human capital strategy, and then what is the role of HR strategy? There needs to be two separate strategies in organizations, and I think that today there are still very many organizations that have a human capital strategy that is their HR strategy, and that cannot be. So a human capital strategy is something that is owned by leadership, and an HR strategy is something that is owned by HR. So it is really important that we keep that separation very alive because it's the only way we will create ownership and accountability with our leaders. And with that, I'm going to share with you some of the things that we're doing in Mondelez. Only when you put together some of the presentations to share do you realize the scale of work that we're doing, the effort and engagement of our own teams and our own people, and how much we're shifting as a team in parallel or concurrently to a lot of transformation we're driving. So one of the things that everyone will know, for those of you who follow Mondelez and enjoy eating our Oreo and Milka, is we have recently, in the last 2 years, in Eastern Europe specifically, not in Europe, changed the way that we operate quite significantly. So we've redesigned our organization. We have shaped it not only to support countries and markets, but we've actually focused the organization on our categories. So our biscuits business, our confectionery business, our gum and candy business, our chocolate business. So really dedicating how we operate across functions to driving the value proposition of our brands. This has caused us to rethink scale and how we leverage skill in our organization. So we've become a far more global entity. And if you look at the slide, and I'm not going to stay here for too long, but you'll see things like marketing becoming part of a category team. So we'll look at categories, and that includes marketing, RD&Q, and supply chain. Who would have ever thought that we would have put one leader looking after a category which included marketing and manufacturing plants? How's that for a new leadership skill? We also looked at global functions. So what are the functions that we need to ensure there's standardization right from our head office through the entire world? And imagine that Eastern Europe is quite different to Latin America and how we operate. And yet we're trying to drive quite a lot of consistency and standardization in our organization. This is helping us to really operate as one global enterprise. Doesn't come without pain. Every country says, but we're different. We need to have different processes. We need to do things differently, which what does that do? It makes us move slower as an entity. It doesn't help us to make big decisions and big changes. So our shift over the last 18 months has really made our HR enablers, organization design experts. In fact, I think even most of our leaders are organization design experts. By now, they know what's an optimal span of control, and they have conversations that I bet they never thought they would have before. This means we've had to refocus our attention on HR and how we design HR to support a new operating model, a more global organization, but also how we structure HR to drive the efficiency and the effectiveness that we need to as an HR team. So a big focus for us has been HR solutions, and HR solutions is really the back office. So workforce administration, payroll, employer relations, those tasks that actually before made up our personnel administration, right? From a long time ago, how we built up HR, this was the job that we did. This was what HR managers did. And now we're shifting it to back office, and we're making it as digital as we can. So this means we need streamlined processes globally, and we need to make sure that we equip HR to let some of the things that they used to be very busy with go, and give line managers more accountability and responsibility in terms of some of the actions they need to take as people managers. We also need to stay ahead. So we need to know what are the trends. What are global trends? What is happening on the outside? How do we bring the outside in? And how do we stay relevant as not only an HR community, but in terms of some of the practices in talent? So we've created centers of expertise. Again, we run these from a global perspective, sharing knowledge, and we've got these communities. So for example, we've got a compensation and benefits center of expertise. We've got a talent acquisition center of expertise. We've got a learning and development center of expertise, and they really are a community that shares what is happening on the outside. How do we stay relevant in Mondelez? What are some of the things that we need to do differently to stay engaged? So a very core and important responsibility. And then we have what we call our HR business leads. So our HR business leads are those people that pull this all together, right? Importantly, HR business leads need to stay focused on the business. If we do not have commercial acumen, we will not be relevant. We need to understand the numbers, bottom line, top line. We need to understand the economy. We need to understand our industry. And that is the role of our business leaders, because only by connecting the offering that we have from COEs, the back office support that we have, only by connecting that to achieving our business outcomes, are we actually doing anything that is worth contribution as an HR function. So to stay relevant, really focusing on these 3 areas, and very importantly, we don't have a 4-bubble model, we only have a 3-bubble model, are our line managers. So this bubble works very effectively when our line managers are engaged and on the journey with us. And I'll tell you that at Mondelez, it is still not a perfect end. We're still working on getting this 3-bubble model to work as effectively as it needs to. And the next journey is, again, building HR practitioners that have the courage to coach line managers on taking ownership for some of the difficult decisions they need to take. As we've shaped our organization, and as I've mentioned to you, this is one of the areas that we're very proud of. We have changed how we create career paths, as we traditionally used to call them. And we now encourage our employees to think about career experiences. Because with the rate and pace of change, people are learning so much more on the job than what they learn attending a conference or reading a book. And again, interesting fact that a Sunday morning New York Times newspaper has more information than existed in 14th century literature. So this is just Sunday morning coffee, and you've read the 14th century available literature. So we look at what we call career experiences, and just very interesting, I'll take a moment to walk you through some of the types of experiences we look for in our organization. So very importantly, the outside in. So we need our people, and particularly our leaders, to remain relevant and not to have an insular focus. It's very easy when you work in a global enterprise to remain insular, to remain focused on what's going on in your entity, learning from best practices across your globe, and forget what's happening in your industry. We also look for core skills, of course. There are important skills that we need. So for example, now that we become more global, English is a very important skill for us to be able to connect and communicate. So we need leaders who are able to conduct business conversations in English right across the globe. So this is very important. Finance skills are critical. HR needs to be able to understand a P&L. Otherwise, we're not really going to understand what's happening in our business. People management experiences, this is a really important one. So how do you manage a team? How do you manage teams of teams? Because, you know, there's again a very interesting book around what got you here won't get you there. And we have to be reminding our line managers very often that the way that they work changes as they move roles. Personal growth experiences, these are very important. So people grow by interacting, collaborating, and learning from others. So who is taking the time to mentor, to coach, to reach out for a mentor or a coach? Broadening experiences. So are you getting involved in project roles? Because the opportunity for you now to increase your own scope is endless. If you're interested, there's always something going on. So scope of experiences. We're looking for cross-functional but also international, and Mondelez is advocating international careers for our people now so that we make sure we get the right experience. Market experiences. So we have commercial career paths which require our individuals or our colleagues to know sales and marketing. So we're really encouraging the cross-functional awareness, understanding, and it's a really important skill as we look for some of our leaders. And then our leadership experiences. And right at the top there is around how do we transform business culture. And I don't think that it's easy for us to predict what is going to be the business culture of success in the future, but it is certainly a question that we should be preparing ourselves for today. Also at Mondelez, we've recently launched our Mondelez International University. And this is a global online learning academy that offers to our employees We have at the moment around 740 courses that we have streamlined globally, and they are aligned to 4 of our faculty areas: leadership and management, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that one. Our functional expertise, so how are we consistently building our language skills, building our negotiation skills, our influencing skills, our fundamental skills faculty, and also our business at Mondelez. So business at Mondelez is an important one because it is focused on our processes, our business processes. And again, it's really important for us to understand what are the key processes that help us operate as a business, that drive our results, that are there to measure our results. So integrated business planning is everybody's business, not only our demand planners and our sales team business. So we've created this online university. It is accessible to employees on their mobile, so it's just-in-time learning. If they need to become aware of, what does integrated business planning stand for, there is a tier 1 training. If they want to drill into the detail around how they prepare for a demand review, they can go into that information and be ready. And we expect our employees to be educated, be aware, and be able to drive what's necessary with the right skills responsibly. This is one of our flagship and very proud programs, and it is our signature leadership program. So we run around 4 to 6 a year for Leadership for Performance, and we fetch some of our key young leaders. We put them in a global leadership team somewhere in the world, and we give them an opportunity to connect with each other, because this is a really important skill. Our leaders don't have time to have conversations, to connect with each other and really learn and understand what are some of the challenges they face as individual leaders. So we focus on the me. Who am I as a leader? How have I grown? What are the capabilities I have? And who are we as a leadership team in Mondelez? And then we do our bit here for social responsibility, and we get our leaders to work together on a project that is relevant to social impact. So they become consultants to an NGO for a week, and they help come up with a business proposal, either for funding or for solving a real business challenge for the NGO. And these have resulted in really significant shifts in the way our young leaders think. It's really opened up their awareness around their own individual responsibility to leadership. And so at Mondelez, we're really proud of our concept of enterprise leadership and how we're going around building this. Then building a strong culture. So we have 2 core objectives in Mondelez. We want top-tier financial performance, but we also want to be a great place to work. And a lot of times, particularly in our environment, when business gets really hard, top-tier financial performance oftentimes becomes contradictory to achieving a great place to work, because people need to work harder, we're cost-cutting, it's not such a great place to work. And what we've done to try and counter that is we have created a group or a forum, if we would like to call it that. And we have around 150 volunteers just in our Eastern Europe business. And this is not HR, this is business volunteers who are actually involved in activities that connect them, but also give them that sense of meaning and purpose that they're looking for. And I've spoken about the me, us, it. We live this concept in Mondelez around how resourceful are we as individuals, as teams, and in service of our organization. And so we've connected a number of programs focused on how do we unleash our people. And by unleashing our people, we talk about engagement, and I'll go to that in a minute. How do we develop our people? How do we stay connected with humanity? So what are the social responsibility initiatives that we're involved in? How do we award our people? And in Mondelez, we have what we call Values in Action Awards. So we really connect our people to some of the values that we want to achieve as an organization. And then how are we winning? So we have, for example, one of our star performers in sales, they created an app. Our sales person created an app. And this app is an interactive store check. So any employee in Mondelez can download this app, and we can go into a store and we can say, well, look at this share of shelf. This is where we are, this is where we are not. And it becomes really interesting information sharing, but it also creates the responsibility and passion for our brands as Mondelez ambassadors by staying connected. So in terms of unleashment, we have 3 programs specifically that are about creating that purpose, that energy, that engagement. One of them is our Love Brands Month, where we share about different brands that we have. We give employees, again, across Eastern Europe, a flavor of some of our brands. What does it taste like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And that is really important because our best ambassadors are our people. Ask us. Ask the children of our employees how much they love Oreo and Barney. We also have my Flex program, and again, as I mentioned, it's my first time in Ukraine, and in the office yesterday, it was great to see my Flex program really alive. So it's around flexible working. It's also around creating an office environment that is conducive to people needing to bring their children home to work, either because the children are not feeling well or they needed to come home from school early. And we have infrastructure or a setup where children can feel very comfortable in a safe space, and our colleagues can continue to focus on the work that they need to, and at the same time pay attention to what needs attention, which is their children. They also have rooms where employees can go and do some de-stressing. So, have a massage where our ladies can get a manicure or pedicure during lunch so that we can give them some free time on the weekends. So these things all sound very luxurious, but it's the small things that go a long way, and it's those that mean something to our people. So their engagement in the office and their commitment is so much higher because we are showing that we care in a really genuine manner. And then we have This Is Me, and I'm not going to have time to show a video now, but just very importantly what This Is Me is around, so in Eastern Europe we currently have 14 countries, and every country has, I'm going to show it? Okay. I'm going to show it, but let me just tell you first. So every country, as you'll know, is very unique in culture, in who they are, in what their values are, what they're proud of. And we really try and make sure that, again, there is this cross-cultural awareness, because oftentimes when we connect, we need to communicate in a way that people understand or engage with us, or that people are not offended in terms of the messages that we're giving them. So This Is Me has been, again, owned by people in the different markets, and we give them an opportunity during our quarterly town halls to showcase their markets. So this is your opportunity to create a video, and during this town hall you'll show a video, and after that we will eat Georgian food, we will wear Georgian traditional clothing, we will sing Georgian songs, and it really creates an environment of interest and awareness, because we don't have time, right, to be Googling what's Georgian culture all about. So creating the space in our work environment for it really engages our people. So we also have what we call our Mondelez Unleashment Survey, and it is a survey whereby we really focus on getting feedback from our people, getting feedback on how we demonstrate our values, how we keep our commitment as an employer, and what are the things we're doing well, and where are the areas that we need to work better. And one of our values is about telling it like it is, and we create this platform for our employees to have the opportunity to tell it like it is. So last year I was the EMEA talent lead, and during the Unleashment Survey last year we engaged all of our plants, every single blue-collar employee, all of our sales force, and we had a 99% participation rate, which again doesn't go with no effort, but a really great opportunity for us to get some honest feedback from our people. These results are for Mondelez globally, so all of our regions across the world. And really it gives us a view that over 75% of people participated globally. We had a rating of above 80% of our employees saying that they are proud to work for Mondelez, and around 70% believe that Mondelez, or have recommended Mondelez to be, one of the best places to work. So these are really important statistics that we track, And of course, our employer proposition, our competitive landscape, our talent needs are different across many of our markets. And staying in tune, I like to say, keeping our finger on the pulse with engagement is really important, and it connects back everything that we're doing as a business, how we're driving some of our key business objectives, the way that we manage our transformation. This is what comes back to tell us you did a good job or you really need to improve. And as you would imagine, there are always many areas for improvement, so we're never bored, and looking at how we take our programs going forward to really fit our environment. So in summary, what are the things that we need to focus on as HR in enabling the right people strategies? First, it's about the right people in the right place. And gone are the days where line managers can say, I need this role and I need this role to sit here and do A, B, C. Because now we challenge line managers to say, well, the best capability for this is sitting not so close to you, and that's where we're going to go find this role. It is difficult. Connecting in a virtual way is not easy for line managers. The discipline of switch on your camera if you want to see someone, still not part of our business. So really, really importantly is making sure we bring people into our organization, promote people into roles who are ready to not only take on the skills that are required, but also the capabilities of a very different way of working. We need to invest in our leaders, and I think that the challenge for leaders ahead is only continually growing, not becoming smaller. And we need leaders with the courage to coach, right? This is really, really important. Things move quickly. Leaders need to stop. Leaders need to listen. And again, in Mondelez, we have a see, hear, speak model. And you would imagine that in most organizations, our leaders are always ready to speak. And seeing and hearing takes a lot more effort and becomes a lot more difficult when you're working virtually. Keep your talent learning and growing. Again, we can never take our finger off the pulse. Are we listening, and are we reacting fast enough? Are we in fact responding to global trends and not waiting for our talent to threaten to leave the organization if we don't? Make it a great place to work amidst the change. Transformation is not going away. Difficult environment, unpredictable environment is here to stay. So how do we still connect our employees to feeling that they're at a great place to work? And then you measure your engagement consistently. I think that this is something that no organization should operate without. And employees sometimes can be very frustrated. I remember that when we had gone through our first year of the new operating model, we had implemented zero-based budgeting, and people were really angry with us. They were sitting at the coffee machine saying, I'm not going to respond to an unleashment survey. Why would I respond to an unleashment survey? And I was like, well, precisely this is why you should be responding to the unleashment survey. Go and tell us how angry you are so that we hear it. Because leaders also are often in denial, right? Even when they get the unleashment results, they want me to slice it and dice it in every single small piece. And I'm like, guys, what are the messages we're getting? We have a 99% participation rate. You can cut it any way you like. The messages are clear. And it's not easy for leaders to accept that still today. So this requires us to continuously focus on HR. I think HR and communication, so I must say that's the one thing I've really loved about working in Mondelez is the partnership between HR and communication, how we align what we want to do and the one common voice to our people through our leaders. This is a very important one, putting leaders in very awkward situations and saying, I'll help you, I will coach you on some of the messages you need to give, but guess what? It's your job to give those messages. And I think that takes a lot of courage from us as an HR community as well, and also as a communications community. So for those of you who are our business leaders here, take time to see and hear a little bit more, particularly when you're engaging with your people and your HR and communications colleagues. And I think that is it from me.